Good morning. So we have here the next lesson, flowchart structure. Proceed with the next slide after this. We have two design in a flowchart structure. One is algorithm with different forms. First is a narrative and second is a pseudocode. Flowchart is the graphical representation of the program derived from the algorithm. To begin with the basic flowchart. So we have here the terminal, the start of the flowchart, process for the formula, initialization for all the variables, decision box for the condition, whether true or false, input and output, uh, display, arrowhead, on-page connector for the connection of the lines within the page. Of page connector is the connector for the next page. On the next slide is a sample that accepts an input full name and age, starting with the terminal. Then next is the initialization for the variable, display message, and the input variable for enter your name, and the display message for an input variable, enter your age, and end with the terminal. The next flowchart accepts such as student number, student name, year level, and course. So we have the terminal for the first flowchart, followed by the initialization for all the variables, and the output message of each variables, declaring for the starting of your input variables, and then end with the terminal. The next slide are the basic arithmetic operation for the C language. Multiplication asterisk, division slash, modulus division for the remainder is percentage, addition is plus sign, subtraction is a minus sign. The next slide shows the arithmetic sign operator. The longhand, you can shorten your formula using the shorthand. The next example of the flowchart is an accept of the two input then add. So starting with the terminal, next is the initialization of your variable, your input A and B, and the output is C. Next is display message. Next is an input for the variables, input variables such as A and B. Next is the formula, a process for addition, C is equal to A plus B. Then the output message for the result of adding A and B. Then end with the terminal. The next slides are the examples for the area of circle, area of triangle, area of rectangle, area of circle, rectangle, and triangle. The flowchart for the area of circle, starting with the terminal, then the initialization with the defined value of pi, 3.1416, and the output message for the input variable r, formula for the area of circle, and a message to show on the screen for the computation of the area of circle, then end with terminal. The next flowchart is the area of rectangle, starting with the terminal, then the initialization for the formula of the rectangle. Then next is the message for entering the length and the variable input L. Next message is enter for the width and for the input variable W. Then next is the formula for the computation of the area of rectangle stored to AR. Then next is the result of the rectangle, and last is the end terminal. The next flowchart is the area of triangle, starting with the terminal. Next is the initialization for the variable, input and output. Then next is the message for the user to enter a base, and then the variable declaration B. Then next is enter the height for the and the input variable declaration of H. Next is the formula for the area of the triangle. Second to the last is the message from the screen to execute the result of the computed formula of the area of triangle. And last is the end terminal. The next flowchart is the combination of the three formula, area of circle, rectangle, and triangle. So starting with the terminal, then next is the initialization of the variables. Then next is the output message for the triangle and an input message for the input variable B and H. Next message is for the rectangle and an input message for the length and width. Then next is the circle and an input variable for rectangle. Then combine all the formulas in one rectangle. Next continuation, I use on-page connector to connect the two flowcharts rather than to use the arrow. So on the next is the display message for the area of triangle. Next is the display message for the area of rectangle, and next is the display message for the area of circle. Then last is to end the terminal. The next flowchart shows the conversion of inches to meter, conversion of seconds to hours, and conversion of feet to centimeter. The flowchart shows the input inches to meter. So starting with the terminal, then next is meter, then input and the constant variable. Next is to display a message and the input variable. Next is the formula for the conversion, and next is the display message and the result of the computed formula. Last is the end terminal. The next is the flowchart for an input seconds to hours conversion, starting with the terminal. Next is the input and output and conversion. Then next is the display message and the input variable. Next is the formula for the conversion of seconds to hours. Next is the result of the computed value from the input, and last is the terminal. Next example is the flowchart for the input foot or feet to centimeter, starting with the terminal. Next is the initialization of the input-output variable and constant variable. Then next is the display message and the input variable. Next is the formula for the conversion. Next is the result of the computation, and last is the terminal end. Okay, so you have to open your canvas for the next session.